Hello, my name is Curtis M. Lawson, and you're watching Weird Transmissions, the podcast where I talk with authors, musicians, and artists across all medium of weird and dark art. And today, my guests are Jared and Jay from Razorblades Love Teenage Flesh. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for
How's it
having
going?
us.
Thanks for having us.
So, I've known Jared probably longer than anyone except for my mom. um, And I met Jay freshman year of high school, and we used to ditch school together and go play music.
Mm.
Um, so, for anybody who's not familiar with you guys and what you do, why don't you just give us kind of the rundown of both of you individually and of the music project?
Jay, why don't you start?
All right. Well, as Curtis said, I've been kind of in it, neck deep with these guys since I was a kid, and I've been everywhere, all over the place, from old school thrash, punk, hardcore, and just playing all the time. Not really as much as I'd like to nowadays, but yeah, just getting into it.
And I've been grinding it out since I was a youngin. Um, Playing in any kind of band that would have me. Um, whether it be bass or guitar, like uh it never went very far out there. I was never like in a reggae band or anything like that. But I played metal and punk and hardcore, but I've played like indie rock and emo and
Very cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the current project, Razor Blades of Teenage Flesh? Obviously, the name is a Misfits reference, but it's not a tribute band, and it doesn't even. I guess there are horror elements, but it doesn't. I wouldn't classify it as horror punk per se, because it's not all like whoa, um,
yeah.
kind of more cancer sluggy, I guess. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the project.
um well, it was a COVID project. I was taking care of my sick grandmother at the time, and I had a relative that was giving me a lot of grief while I was trying to keep things together. And, I just made music my outlet and wrote a bunch of hardcore songs and decided they were good enough that I could put a band together and record them.
And you did everything but the drums, right?
Yeah, and that was not the original intention of the album. I was originally just the guitarist. I put a band together with Jay and a bass player friend of mine, and he had a friend who was a vocalist. Um, and it just like the bass player took like 7 months and wasn't ready to record, and I just wasn't cool with that. So I was like, dude, that's just not really gonna fly, so I'm gonna do this. And I took over the bass, and then the vocalist was friends with the bass player, so obviously he quit. um I got another vocalist interested, a mutual friend of ours who I won't name. But he he kind of told me from the beginning that he was pretty busy and didn't know how much time he had to dedicate to the project. And after about 5 months, we were still at square one with the vocals. And, I had put out feelers for vocalists and nothing was happening. So I just decided I would pick up and do the vocals myself. And, I wrote the lyrics in about a week, and I'm not really a lyricist. That's not my strong point. I don't really write lyrics in general. I've only written one song outside of this band lyrically, and it was a country song about jerking off. Um, so so I wrote the lyrics in about a week. Took about 3 months to work on screaming because I'd never done it before. I had sang, but I've never screamed. So I worked on that for about 3 months and got it into a good place and recorded the vocals. And then a few months later, we did the mixing. And then a little while later, we did the mastering. And finally, it came out.
Very cool. So why did you choose this name? Why did you choose a line from a Misfit song for it?
It's something I've always wanted to name a band.
All right.
I just thought it was such a cool line. Like I always thought it would make a great band name. And I wanted to pay tribute to them. They're like my favorite band.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely it was. I thought it was a cool line from the song that would make a cool band name.
Very cool. And Jay, what was your experience like playing on this? I know you guys have been in a lot of bands together over time, so you guys aren't strangers to playing together. But was this project any different for you from other projects you've been in with Jared?
So so if we rewind this back to where we were putting together like all the rough tracks, we did this like right in the middle, like the worst part of the shutdown, to the point where we were like at my house, masked up and playing.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting and different for me, just in the fact that we decided what we were going to do was play all these songs on an electric kit with him lined into my kit, all on headphones, completely silent all around us, so that we weren't focused at all on having to like soundproof just for the ease of our neighbors or whatever.
Sure.
But putting together the songs like that was so interesting and challenging for me, because it was really like the one time where I couldn't really hide behind a big, loud acoustic drum kit and just like the feel of like the natural feel of the play, and more like really having to concentrate on the body of these songs and working those out to bring into the studio was like, it was like the best part of my COVID. If there was to have a best part of your COVID experience, that was probably it there.
Nice.
It
Now,
was pretty fun.
did you find that playing? I feel like drums, particular, must be interesting to play kind of silently, so to speak. So did you find yourself more focused on like technique and stuff than you would if you were playing on an acoustic kit?
Exactly. Just because like I couldn't really like, I was showing my ass no matter what. Like on an electric kit, it was like, I mean, I was really, everything had to have been pretty much on. There was nothing. There was no wash of a cymbal or like an extra beat on a fill to like hide any sort of like imperfect moment. So it was like,
Sure.
I mean, we really went with a lot of less was better for the drums anyway, so it wasn't like too intense. But for what it was very interesting to do. It was.
Go ahead.
No. That was pretty much it. Yeah.
Now, for you guys recording it like that, which I think is a really interesting way to go about it, how did you? I guess how did you maintain the energy, like that real hardcore energy, while you're practically in a silent room.
It was tough for me to do that, and that was probably the biggest challenge of those songs because they bring so much energy that you want to unleash on like a full-on like acoustic loud. You want to bring all that to volume, and
Yes.
to do it silently was very clean. It was very strange. It was very out of my element. It was cool to be able to step out of that.
What about you, Jared?
Yeah.
How was that? Like, how is it bring the energy to you playing in that kind of environment?
Um, uh, I wasn't really focused on the energy when we were playing silently together. I was focused on, getting the songs worked out and, making sure everything was right.
Sure.
Um,
Well, you're
uh,
more interested in like recording than playing live and stuff nowadays, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
imagine that if you're as a guitar player primarily too, if you're more focused on recording, you're kind of used to just laying down tracks by yourself, kind of, in focusing on the more like technical element than getting needing to get caught up in like the energy of it.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely, you get into what you're playing, like, because you like what I got into what I was playing, because I liked what I was playing, and I liked what Jay was playing, and I had fun playing. But the energy just wasn't a concern of mine
Sure.
at that point. I wanted the energy there for when we recorded, you know.
Yep, that makes sense. So why did you guys choose to go with kind of like horror themes for the songs and like this kind of it reminds me of like almost I don't know like when I like I said it's not like typical horror punk of what you think of as horror punk, but it reminds me of like maybe like Cancer Slug or like Earth ADs by the Misfits or even like Old Gangrene or something like that. Um
Cool. Thank you.
so why did you choose to go with like the horror themes though and the darker themes on this?
um that was something I kind of wanted from the start. I kind of asked it of the couple of vocalists that had gotten involved that the uh the themes of the album would be more in the horror realm.
Yep.
And when it came time for me to write lyrics, um that's just a place I kind of naturally went to. The lyrics were very stream of conscious. Uh, I didn't do a lot of editing or, you know, going back over things.
Sure.
It was very stream of conscious, and it just kind of that style was very natural to me. That's just kind of what came out. Um, I don't know if it's my upbringing on horror. I don't know if it's my mental illness. Uh, you know.
Well, I mean, I know like I said earlier, Jared and I have known each other since we are very, very little, and we played in like some like teenage bands together and stuff. But like in like the earliest music projects we did together before, it was just like us in like two guitars and you know talking about being in bands. It was always like dark stuff.
Yeah.
So did you have any particular, I guess, any particular films or horror media that influenced your writing of the lyrics, or did you just kind of just vomit out whatever kind of horror stuff was in your head?
I just kind of vomited out whatever horror stuff was in my head.
All right.
I wanted it to be. I like I'm not a fan of gore, but I'm a fan of graphic violence.
Okay.
And
How do you define the difference?
uh, gore is like the Saw movies,
Okay.
whereas graphic violence is like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Okay. I can see the difference there.
Um, or even like, like a Friday the 13th movie, or a Halloween movie, or a Freddy movie. It wasn't really gore. It was more graphic violence. I
Yeah.
guess Freddy was a little gory, but it wasn't.
It
It
wasn't
was.
like
It
the
wasn't
torture
gore
porn level.
porn. It
Yeah.
wasn't gore porn, and I consider that graphic violence. And that's how I kind of portrayed the lyrics, I guess.
All
I
right.
would say that that's pretty spot on. Like that's graphic violence is that natural raw feeling. Every time I listen to that 12 minutes, it's 12 minutes of graphic violence for sure. That's I wouldn't have been able to put that any better. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, um, obviously not in the vocal style, but just elements of like the song titles and such like that. Like we already said, it's a reference to the Misfits, but some of the, like the song titles and stuff reminded me more of like Sam Hain, that kind of graphic violence, all murder, all guts, all fun, that sort of
Yeah.
kind of deal. Um, so what were your music influences on this project? And also, like you said, you spent a while working on the screaming part, and people who don't listen to heavy music don't understand that part of it. They're like, oh, it's all the same. But there's obviously a difference between how you scream, like how Chris Barnes screams versus how, Isan from Emperor screams, or like a
Yeah.
hardcore guy screams. So, what were the music influences and the vocal influences on the project?
Um, the music influences, I'd have to say local bands like Bane, Blood for Blood, Converge, Cave In. Um, Older bands like the Circle Jerks. Early Black Flag. Later Black Flag. The middle stuff's kind of. um, but American Nightmare. This is like going into Newbury Comics with $100.
Yeah.
A list, like in a list in the back of your mind, and you walk through the door, and the list just fucking disappears.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Minor Threat, big time Minor Threat.
What about you, Jay? What about like on the drums? I know you guys you said it was kind of like a less is better situation, and you've been playing forever. So I imagine that you have a pretty wide repertoire or whatever. So what were you drawing on for the drum part?
So when it came to those songs, it's a good question. When it came to those songs, um, I really just kind of sat on those for a little bit. And I mean, we tried different versions of those. And really what I did was I just kind of drew on everything that I've surrounded myself since I was a kid. Everything from the thrash, but mostly to the punk, and just kind of like kept it reeled back and simple, but strong. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I was all over the place with a little bit of everything, and each different element of those songs brought for me a little bit of everything. So, I mean, I kind of channeled in a lot of different stuff, but really kind of underhanded it for the purpose of those songs. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, did you find that part of it challenging? Did you find it challenging to not? So, I'm good friends with like the guys in 1476 and the drummer from 1476. He's always trying to like push himself in like
Right.
like these new ways, and
Yeah.
he's one of these guys who's always trying to learn new techniques. And I imagine when it comes to the composition part, anybody who's doing that, it's going to be kind of it's going to be kind of hard to like take a step back and
Right.
pull this stuff that you know how to do away.
It was, but at the same time, it was kind of refreshing to do that
Sure.
and to focus more on the music and each individual part and really get that sort of sequence down right to the T. Like at the beginning, we were not on the same page, and at the end, we were just like we could have been playing in different rooms. You know what I mean? Just from the work we
Yeah.
put in from that kind of reel back. It really worked out and brought out those songs in a better way.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what now, Jared? Like you, I mean, I haven't heard you play outside of a recording in forever, but you've been playing guitar very seriously since we were kids. You're a very talented guitar player. So the same kind of question to you: Did obviously this was your vision? You kind of wanted these songs to sound a certain way, but do you ever find yourself feeling like having the urge to just like shred all over something when like it doesn't fit the song, or do things that are kind of like you know fit within your skill range but maybe wouldn't fit?
My shredding days are long gone.
All right.
I got bored with shredding when I was in my 20s and decided, hey, it's probably time I learn how to strum this thing.
Right. Right.
And I kind of never looked back. So I'm more of a rhythm guitarist now. Leads are just not really like I was the lead guitarist in Lon Chaney Jr., the band we had with Phil a couple of years ago. And I didn't play a lot of solos, but I played like lead parts.
Sure.
And that was cool. I'm able to do that, but I'm not like a s- I'm not like a lead guitar player that can play like a bunch of flashy solos and stuff like that. I like to write sick riffs. Like that's what I like to do.
That makes sense. Yeah. So what about now on the screen part? How did you work that out?
Um. Well, uh, I watched some videos on YouTube, and basically it came down to two methods: fry screaming or false chord vocals. And I kind of tried both, and the false chord vocals worked better for me. Um, so I just took that path and ran with it. And we had, the vocalist. I didn't know I didn't have a vocalist until uh like a year after we had already started tracking the album. So I had tracks to to scream along to at home and practice. So I would just scream and scream and scream and scream until I got it right. Until I got it to a point where I felt it was good.
All right. Very cool. So we already talked about how you guys have been doing this forever. Both of you guys have been playing since you were kids. And there's, I've been in bands with both of you guys when we were young, but you've been in a bunch of bands each since. Can you guys each just give me kind of an overview of your musical history and experience in the Boston music scene?
Um, Well, I go back to my first gig was at Winthrop High School in a grunge cover band called Grog Hollis. Um, but I don't know. Everyone liked it. Everyone had a good time. But yeah, and I didn't really start playing a lot of shows in Boston until I got into my 30s. I was in various bands in my 20s that never really did anything. And then I got involved in a band called Textbook Co-Pilot as their bass player. And we played a bunch of shows. We recorded with Jay Robbins from Jawbox. And we did all right for ourselves. Like, not all right for ourselves, but, we people came to our shows.
Yeah, relatively speaking, all right.
Yeah, people came to the shows, so like it was cool. And then that band kind of just broke up because we were all a bunch of head cases. And I started playing in Lon Chaney Jr. and as a lead guitarist and a backup vocalist, and we made some pretty cool music and
Played a couple of
played some
shows.
pretty good shows.
Yeah.
And
So Lon Chaney Jr., was that just you guys and Phil? Or was there anybody else in that?
Morgan Sweet.
Oh, Morgan.
Davis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting to me how people tend to like start like new bands with like, over and over with kind of the same people. And I've definitely was, had done that through until I stopped playing in my 20s or so. But like, I think Morgan's been in almost every band that Phil started. And so do you guys find, I guess, do you find that it works well, or that there are advantages to going back and working with the same people on different projects? Or like, do you think it's more advantageous to kind of branch out and try to work with new people? I guess my thing with it has always been, I'll see people who I know who they'll start a band and they'll get a little bit of traction, and then they'll break up or whatever, and then they'll start a new band with a new name with practically all the same people,
Right.
and it seems
Yeah.
like you just thrown away any traction that you made.
Right.
And like I could see if you're going in a wildly different direction.
Yeah.
But I was curious what you guys thought about that sort of trend.
I kind of like bringing that in both directions, and like, I mean, definitely the advantage of playing with people that you've played with and been around the block with is the fact that you've already have like dynamics established, and
Yeah.
so that's always nice. But I always like to explore outside of that circle and find new people and see what sort of chemistry there is between those strangers.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Jared?
Yeah, I like both ways. Like, I Jay was the first person I thought of for this project, and I've been playing in bands with Jay since freshman year in high school. Like, but it's he hasn't been in every band I've been in, and the same goes for him. Like, I haven't been in every band he's been in. We've gone our separate ways and branched out and played with other people. And when we get back together, it's like just like great,
No.
Very cool. All right.
For sure.
Now, Jared, you're obviously a multi-instrumentalist. So what you said you played bass in some bands. You know, basically whatever band would have you, you play whatever. Um, I know the guitar is, or at least I believe guitar is your primary instrument. It used to be.
Yes.
Um, so do you have different thoughts or approaches to, I mean, obviously different instruments serve different purposes, but I guess how do you approach different instruments in different ways? Do you change your mindset about, you know, about how you're composing or anything?
Um, it all depends. Um, you know, this project, um, as far as bass went, I kept it a lot simpler than I typically do. It was a lot of root note Charlie stuff going on because I just felt it needed that way. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's some stuff
Mm-hmm.
that goes off and does other stuff, but for the most part, I kind of stick to the root notes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's what served these songs justice.
I
Um,
agree.
Now,
and
when you were composing the songs, did you compose them? I guess when you're composing music in general, do you primarily start with guitar or do you?
yes,
Okay,
yes, I start with guitar. Always start with guitar. I uh, I don't have an amp. I have a Strymon Iridium pedal, which is an amp in a box.
all right,
Plug headphones into it to practice, and I line out of it to record. And I recorded all the guitar parts on the EP with the Strymon Iridium as my amp, and just used distortion pedals.
very cool.
Yeah.
Uh, Jay, do you play anything but drums, or are you just
No,
primarily drummer?
that's
Okay,
it for
so
me.
you've
Yep.
just stuck with that. All right.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so talking about the pedals, you just talked about this kind of amp in a box. Now, I don't know if you still do, but you were making pedals for a while, right, Jared?
Yeah, I was. For a few years, for a good few years, I did that, and I just had a problem with my hands where I couldn't really hold the soldering iron properly anymore and do the fine work that I needed to do to build quality stuff.
Sure.
So I had to stop, but it was fun while it lasted. You can still get kits of my bass designs on generalguitargadgets.com. And if you want to do the projects, they have the schematics for free.
Now,
Um,
what made you get into that?
I was playing bass in a band at the time, and I wanted distortion. And I was looking for bass overdrives, and there was only like 3 on the market at the time. This was back in like 2009, and they all sucked.
All right.
So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna build my own bass overdrive, and I basically modified a tube screamer and gave it more gain, gave it more bass, and made it a fire breathing monster. And that's called the Krampus. And I also did a bass muff called the Deluge. And those were available at Guitar Pedal Shop in Plymouth, Mass. They were. They no longer are. I don't believe they have anything left in stock.
Sure.
But I was also building like guitar pedals on the side for people in my practice space, and people they knew, you know. But yeah, it just started as I wanted a bass overdrive that didn't suck. And so I designed one and it didn't suck.
And I guess I don't want to, bore listeners with like specific electrical engineering details, but how did you learn how to make different sounds and such? Like, how did you learn the engineering part of it?
Trial and error.
All right.
Breaking a lot of stuff.
All right. Fair enough.
Best way to do it.
Let's shift gears a little bit. What are you guys listening to lately? What's really on your radar musically?
Man, I've been pretty deep into like a lot of Doom. I've been listening to Windhand and Elder, and but then I'll take a total left turn and I'll just go back to like old school punk stuff. I'm always all over the place. Like my rotation's always in like full spin all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So I might put something down for 5 years and then I'll pick it up and it won't leave like my rotation for 3 months.
Oh yeah. I'm the same way with that.
Yeah.
Are there any newer bands that really stand out to you, Jay?
I've been listening to this band out of Oregon called Faytooth.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like 4 ladies and 1 dude, and they just absolutely kill. Great,
nice.
Great. I recommend. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Jared?
I'm an old man.
You're younger than me.
I listen to old man music. I listen to Black Sabbath and Danzig. That's it.
That's it. Black Sabbath and Danzig. All right.
Oh, the new Kowloon Walled City. Absolute must. So good.
Nice.
Yep.
I'm so kind of behind. I've only because once I had my kid, I just kind of fell off of everything for years.
Sure.
And only in the past 5 years or so have I really, started looking for music again. Like I was just, it was the same thing. Like I was just listening to the same stuff I was listening to in high school for. And then, like maybe like 5 years ago, I started looking for new music again and started going to shows again and stuff. And it's kind of exciting because you find all this stuff that's like also it's like, oh, this is new. Like it might have come out 10 years ago, but it's still new to me.
Right.
Absolutely. 100%.
I discovered this band Botanist out of California that I like fell in love with, and like this release, I don't know, it was probably like a 10-year-old release, but it just blew me away. And it was just really cool to have like new music have that impact on me. They're a cool band because they're like they call themselves green metal. They're like an eco themed black metal band, and they, instead of using guitars, they have a hammered dulcimer that they put pickups on, and they run through distortion.
Nice.
It sounds really cool because the main guy, his background was as a drummer. So when he wanted to do something, he wanted something percussive. So he went with the hammered dulcimer, and it's got a very unique sound. And then like they have this whole like plants apocalyptic theme going on, so it's kind of unique lyrically too, and visually.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
I'm gonna check them out for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's it was nice though going to shows again and kind of I don't know, being a person instead of just a father.
Right.
Man, I love your sailing, by the way, Jay.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's all just like natural. I don't know what the planks are, but yeah, it's just a regular. I don't know, shiplap. I think it's shiplap. That's what it is.
Nice.
And
very cool.
Just stained. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Jared, you talked about like Danzig. So for some reason, Danzig comes up in. Well, I know not. It's not for some reason, but Danzig comes up in like just about every episode of this. I do. Because I'm obsessed, and I've tried to get. I've had Ari Vaughn on here.
Yeah.
I've tried to get other people on. I've tried to get John Christ and Chuck Biscuits and Doyle, and of course I tried to get Glenn. But it's none of those guys responded. But what do you think of? I guess what do you think of later Danzig? Like I guess where did you fall off, and have there been any albums like after 4 or so that you have liked?
No.
No. All right.
No, there haven't been any albums after 4 that I've liked.
I liked 7, but it was production wise. I don't know. I feel like it suffered from that like early 2000s Pro Tools. Like everything sounds like it's produced the same.
Yeah.
And then he did. Have you listened to Red Dead Sabbath or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
I liked that one. I thought that kind of had a Sabbathy sound. I think it had the drummer from Typo maybe. But man, that if you haven't listened to the Elvis album, don't.
Yeah.
Just
I
it's
have
bad.
no desire.
It's rough.
I have no desire.
So when you guys, here's a question. So speaking of that, like my big problem with like later Danzig, is that there's a lot of corners cut. I feel, sometimes it was like with the liner notes or whatever, but like that Elvis album, it sounds like he just did this by himself, like in his house. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but like not for an Elvis cover album when you're Glenn Danzig,
Right.
So how do you guys go about approaching the making a quality project or a quality product, whether it's for the production, the mastering, the packaging? I know this isn't a physical media at all, but you obviously like took time and like care on the logo. So how do you go about making sure that you're putting out the best quality product you can?
Well, just doing what you have to do it.
Mhm.
Like I wrote these songs and they're not all new songs. There's a couple of old ones that I snuck on there,
Okay.
but they're mostly new songs. And I just took the highest quality. I had other songs that I wrote for it that I didn't deem right for it. And I just kind of went through the material and picked what was good and what wasn't. And I picked a good drummer. And I used all the best gear I could use. My friend Eric, I knew he knew his gear extremely well. The guy who was the tracking and mixing engineer, he knew his stuff, he knew his gear. He had an idea of what I was going for. And I made sure everyone that was involved was quality,
Yeah, absolutely.
Our mastering engineer, Chris Johnson, plays bass in a band called Deaf Heaven. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Nah, I have
Uh,
not.
well, they're a really cool metal band.
Nice.
They're black gaze. It's like
Okay.
black metal and shoegaze.
Yeah, yeah, like Alcest and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. They're big fans of Alsace.
Yeah. Very cool. Um, what kind of gear do you guys do? I don't want to get like super nerdy with this for anybody who's not like into gear, but just real rough, real quick, what kind of gear do you guys use on it aside from you talked about the amp in a box thing?
Well, for a guitar, I used a Yamaha SBG 200 from the 80s. It's a Les Paul killer, and I have a Les Paul, and this thing is a Les Paul killer. Um, uh, I used, let's see, I used a Boss HM2 heavy metal pedal clone because the Wazacrap version wasn't released yet, and I wasn't spending $500 on an original Japanese HM2. So I got a clone, and the thing sounds rad. The thing sounds amazing.
Nice.
It's that Swedish buzzsaw sound, like it's just the heaviest distortion you've ever heard. It's great. And then I did some tracks with a big muff style pedal called the White Elk, from Renan and Cuff. And yeah, those were the main tones on the album through the Iridium set on a Marshall setting. With some gain on it. And a decimator noise suppressor to keep it quiet so I can do some, stop start stuff.
All right. And Jay, I know you said now. Did you record it on an electric kit too?
So no, I recorded on a Gretsch acoustic kit with
Okay.
full setup.
I was just saying it did not sound like an electric kit to me.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. We did all of our prep on the electric kit. I bought a very middle of the road electric mesh top kit with like a module out of the box, but I disassembled it all and I set it up like an actual drum set instead of like trying to all have it pinned together with a rack.
Sure.
Just for comfort and a little bit more familiarity with the drum set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And nothing to it. Very simple setup. And I didn't need to really use the computer that it came with because we just had everything lined right in that Jared already had. So yeah, that was pretty much it. It was just a very basic, functional kit with that mesh top instead of the rubber, just to replicate a little bit of natural acoustic feel. And yeah, that's how we drilled through all those songs.
Very
and then
cool.
it was really nice to be able to actually bring all that all in full arsenal and then bring that onto the acoustic kit in studio.
Now, when you finally got to sit down and play that on the acoustic kit, like did you feel like a big difference?
Oh yeah, I felt like I could breathe again.
Yeah.
I just felt like I felt like I could move again, like I could hear, and like I was just back to life.
Yeah.
You know?
Very cool.
Yeah.
So do you guys I talked to Jared a little bit before we started streaming, but so there are plans for a follow-up to this?
Yes. I have some songs in the works. We haven't started jamming them yet. I wanted to wait for this EP to come out because I just wanted my focus to be on that before we started worrying about the next EP.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna work on another EP. We're gonna start jamming soon.
Are you gonna keep the same kind of sound? Are you evolving it at all?
No, it's gonna be very similar.
All right.
Um, yeah, we're not like um we're not moving forward creatively.
We're gonna we're gonna prep it. We're gonna prep in silence again, definitely for sure. Just it worked out, and it was I think it allowed for more focus than it normally would. So
I
we're
can
gonna
definitely see
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So we're gonna
yeah.
go with that again and see where that goes for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now this is I don't know if you'd classify how you guys would classify it. You know, it sounds kind of punky. It's a little bit hardcore or whatnot. Um, we're all old men now, so I'm curious about what your thoughts are on, I guess, kind of like punk culture, you know, metal culture, basically the culture behind heavy music as the people who play it and love it have aged, and you don't really see as many young kids getting into it. You know, it's now my son telling me to turn down my terrible screaming music instead of my parents. You know, um, so um, so I was just curious. You know, when we all came into this as kids, you know, there was this, you know, there's this rebellious element, um, and you know, I'm just curious how you've aged with it and what you think of the culture as it is now in the future, I guess, of it.
Well, my experience of punk culture is a little bit different from Jay's because Jay still actively goes to shows and sees bands play, whereas I kind of don't.
Mm.
um, but shit, I forgot where I was going with that. Um, yeah. My experience with the culture is like Facebook groups with people that are like my age. You know, that talk about the bands they like from back in the day. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Do you think there's still anything punk rock about punk? Do you think there's anything like rebellious or I guess iconoclastic about it still, or do you think that it's more just a sound now?
um, I mean, punk is an attitude first and foremost. Um, I I think nowadays punk is more a sound. Um, like the 145 formula is definitely copied to death. Um, and all that. But I'm sure, if you dug underground, and found some basement show, you'd find some pretty cool stuff going on.
Sure. When I talked to Ari Vaughn, he kind of said something similar. He said, you know, this stuff. He's like, of course, there's still like rebellious stuff. There's still underground stuff. He's like, but you're too old to find it. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, I guess what I would add to this is like, as Jared said, like I continue to go out and I try to go and see shows and see, whether it's the same venue I've been seeing shows at since I was a kid, or I find a new spot because there's somebody playing, in an even smaller room that I'm normally used to. The shift, I can't identify it, but what I do see is I feel like the excitement's gone.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's a Friday night and just a place to go now, and it's not that same like I just drove here for 3 hours because I'm like I was gonna see the show or the show wasn't gonna happen. You know what I mean? That kind of an attitude.
Yeah.
But I see a little bit of a loss. I feel like every time I go out in that excitement, and that kind of bums me out a little bit. And I don't know. Beyond that, I'm not really sure how to identify what I'm seeing as a change or what I'm seeing as a miss. You know what I
See,
mean?
I see that too, and I don't go to a ton of shows, but like I would go to shows at Kodo and Salem once in a while when I
Yeah,
lived there,
yeah,
and I noticed that it was a lot of sitting at the bar
yeah.
and a lot less of standing at the stage.
Right.
And my first thought is that, once again, well, everybody's aging out, we're getting old, like, we're not as excited, but it wasn't older people sitting at the bar, it's people in their
No.
their 20s, 30s.
Right.
And it, I've seen this at other shows too, where there's just everybody kind of stays back a little bit.
Yeah.
There's not much movement.
Right.
So yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why that shift is, but it's kind of it's a
Right.
little bit sad. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, and then one of the things I wonder about too is just because of just the nature of our like culture and like you know our environments where I think that it was in the 80s or the 90s, if you started a punk band or a metal band or whatever, and you were being like, there were very clear things to rebel against.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you could say these things and it was definitively rebellious. Like it might have been bullshit. You might not have believed it. You might have just been, wearing a pentagram because Slayer wore pentagrams, or saying fuck the
Right.
police because Ice-T says it, or whatever. But
Right.
there were definitive things. And I think that we live in a culture now where everything's so divided that there's like two sets of right and wrong and two sets of normalcy and two sets of so I think that it's hard to approach like heavy music from that same sort of way,
Mm.
where um and I'm sure this comes from me being an old man, and I'm sure there are young kids doing this in different ways that we don't understand and rebelling against things that we don't even know that there's there to be rebelled against.
Right. Right.
But it's just curious to me how you I think for a lot of it though, I think there is more superficiality to it in from what I see. And even look at something like Black Craft Cult. Like I like their clothes or whatever, but like it's just a clothing brand.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
nothing really rebellious about it.
Right.
Um and yeah, it's just it's curious to me like how that sort of youthful rebelliousness will manifest for younger generations. Because I don't necessarily think it's going to be in music the same way that we had it. I
No.
wonder if it's going to be in different mediums. So, but
Yep. For sure.
Yeah.
um, so my last question that I ask everyone is, what is your philosophy on art? Why do you create it? What do you hope to give with it, and what do you hope to get?
Um, I don't really have a philosophy on art. I mean, just keep it real. Like, if if what you are is if you identify with a scene or a movement, then you do that. If you don't follow your own path, um, just make art. Just do it. It's it, it's enrichment for the whole world. Um,
Absolutely.
uh, what do I hope to get from art? Um, Personal satisfaction. Um, and that's all I've ever really hoped for. It's really kind of selfish, but it's about that feeling I get when I listen to something I've done and it's good. I deem it good, not like good for like, you know, just some dude like good because it's good.
Yep.
And that's what I get out of it, and what I'd hope to give from it is just entertainment. Um, take you out of your whatever you got going on that's dragging you down, and give you 12 minutes of screaming bloody murder um to 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 escape that, and just rock out and have a good time.
All right. What about you, Jay?
See, for me, like that kind of ties into what we just talked about like sort of, the whole culture kind of dying out and the excitement aspect of it. I just kind of want to really see excitement and passion and inspiration. Like if I want to be able to give that and create that in somebody else's core to do that on their own, whether it's just listening or taking it and getting into playing on their own, like, you know what I mean? I just want that to be kind of equally distributed, and I want people to actually feel it, like, because it's amazing. It's been what's driven me forever, you know.
Absolutely, man.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, I think that it was, it's kids are different now, the world's different,
yeah,
but I think that each of us just, in different ways really owe heavy music a great debt for getting out of high school alive, for getting
right,
to high
Yeah.
school alive.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, I think that it's, yeah, it was a very important thing for so many people,
yeah,
and like you hear the same story
yeah,
over and over again.
yeah.
So the fading excitement is, yeah, it's kind of disheartening.
Mm-hmm.
But, all right, guys. Well, this is awesome. Definitely, everybody go and you guys just on Bandcamp? Is there any
No,
place
we're
else?
everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
Everywhere. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon, Google,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. If
So go.
you listen to music, just search Razorblades Love Teenage Flesh and you will find us.
And are there any other projects that you guys want to promote or talk about? Feel free. Anything.
No.
That's all.
No?
That's all
That's
I
it?
got. Nope, just
All right.
12.
That's it.
Just 12 minutes of graphic violence. Check it out.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us,
Thank
Kurt.
you.